So surveillance is something that, as an investigative firm, a firm that does litigation support and research, we're very careful about. When clients ask us about surveillance, one of the first things we do, and we do it in almost every request we get for clients to do investigative work, is we say, what are the questions you're trying to answer with the surveillance? The reason we ask that question is because often what they're trying to learn does not require surveillance. And surveillance is very expensive, highly complicated, and extremely risky. When we do surveillance, we have to do a number of preparatory things. First of all, we have to make sure that if we are conducting surveillance in a jurisdiction, it is permitted. I know that sounds like a simple issue, but in many cases, there are significant boundaries to doing that. There are parts of Europe where that's permitted, and there are many parts of Europe where it is a violation of law to conduct that kind of surveillance. The second thing is surveillance requires a great many people. If you are going to do physical surveillance on somebody, you have to make sure you have enough people to follow a person in the public space. And you may only do it in a public space. Once a person goes into a place where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy, in most jurisdictions, the surveillance has to end. So you see, that means there's a risk that that person can go into a private space and we may not be able to pick them up again. We may not be able to see what they're doing. And the questions that a client may be trying to answer with that surveillance may not be answerable. Okay? And finally, and this is obviously something very recently with Credit Suisse, who tried to surveil one of their former executives because they suspected he was recruiting people from Credit Suisse. Their surveillance people were identified and caught. The term that people use both in Hollywood and in the industry is, you've been burned, right? The surveillance people were identified, and they were outed. That resulted in the COO of Credit Suisse resigning. That resulted in, obviously, some significant changes at that bank, and a rash of very, very bad press, and obviously very significant damage to their reputation. They're not the only people who've done that. There have been other people who've hired investigative firms to do that very type of work. And again, it is something that needs to be done in a careful situation. It needs to be done in a relatively limited fashion, if it is done at all. And if there is any alternative method of gathering that information, we recommend a client do that.